When my grandson declared, "You're not family," in front of everyone, I didn't fight back. I just stood there, frozen, as the words sliced through the heavy air like glass. The room held its breath. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat a painful reminder of the distance that had grown between us. That I remember his young face, illuminated by the soft glow of the chandelier above. His cheeks flushed with anger, eyes wide, like he was staring into the abyss. The whispers started, a tide of murmurs washing over me, wrapping me in a suffocating blanket of shame. People shifted in their seats, eyes darting between us. I wanted to grab his shoulders, to shake some sense into him. But my hands, clammy and trembling, hung limply at my sides. All my life, I'd been a protector, a fortress, me family's anchor. Memories flooded my mind, the laughter we shared, or the quiet moments in the park, just observing the clouds drift by. How could he stand there accusing me, launching this life-altering grenade in front of everyone? It felt like a betrayal, a knife in my back from the one I'd held close. I'd poured my love and wisdom into him, and yet here we were. But the truth is, I had my secrets too. The things I'd never told him, the choices that haunted me like shadows in the night. A silence fell over the crowd, heavy and thick. I could hear my own heartbeat, feel the warmth of shame creeping up my neck. I stood alone in my pain, while the world around me buzzed like angry hornets. Suddenly, my niece, a quiet girl with bright blue eyes, stood up. "Stop it, Alex. Grandma's always been there for us." Her voice broke the tension, but I knew her support wouldn't change his mind. She added more, words tumbling over one another, trying to shield me from his accusations. But her voice faded into the noise, just like the love that once knitted us together. That I couldn't help but think, what if the truth was even harsher than he knew? What if his words were just the surface of a much deeper wound? I opened my mouth to speak, to explain myself, but nothing came out. Instead, I felt raw, exposed, as if I were standing on a cliff's edge, teetering. There was a moment, a flicker like lightning, when I saw a glimpse of hesitation in his eyes. It was gone as quickly as it appeared. I could sense the crowd shifting, the anticipation thickening. Would they see him for who he truly was? Or would I be left standing in a storm, battered and broken? The air crackled with electricity as I searched for a sign, some indication that he might reconsider. But his face hardened, words ready to spill venomous and cruel. My mind raced. What have I done to deserve this? I wanted to scream, to unleash the years of sacrifice and love that had somehow twisted into this moment of destruction, and then I felt a terrifying realization creeping in, like ice running through my veins. What if he'd known more than I thought? What if my past, those ghosts I tried to bury, were clawing their way back to the surface? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The echoes of Alex's accusation reverberated in my mind as I stepped out of the room, my heart heavy with despair. The air felt thick, each breath a battle, every step an exercise in futility. I made my way to the garden, the vibrant autumn leaves strewn about like remnants of a happier past. But even here, surrounded by the vibrant colors of nature, I felt the dull throb of isolation. That I sank to a bench, its weathered wood familiar beneath me, though now it felt foreign, just like the love I once shared with my family. The laughter of children playing in the distance was at odds with the turmoil in my chest. I had spent years building bonds, nurturing a love that felt like it could withstand anything. And yet, in a single moment, it had crumbled, leaving me feeling like a ghost haunting the remnants of my own life. Drawing in a shaky breath, I wiped a tear from my cheek, wishing for the strength to fight back, to explain that family isn't just what's woven from blood, it's also forged in love, in moments shared over countless cups of tea and bedtime stories. But who would listen? I was the villain in this story, cast in the role of the misunderstood matriarch, my past lurking behind me like a shadow. My thoughts spun like autumn leaves in the wind, carried by regret and grief for the connection I had lost. What had I done to deserve this? I tried to piece together the moments that had led to Alex's outburst but found myself only drowning deeper in memories. The pain of the secrets I carried felt insurmountable, as if uncovering them would cost me the last shred of respect I had left in his eyes. A rustling in the bushes startled me from my spiraling thoughts. My niece, the one who had stood up for me, slowly approached, her expression sincere yet laden with concern. "Grandma?" she asked hesitantly, her blue eyes wide and searching. "I thought I'd find you here." I offered a weak smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. "Thanks for coming," I murmured, grateful she had chosen to follow me, even when others had turned their backs. "Are you okay?" she asked, sitting beside me, her voice laced with that innocence younger hearts often carry. "No, darling, I'm not okay," I confessed, the confession punctuated by a shuddering breath. "Your cousin is angry, and it feels like I've lost something more than just his trust. I feel like I've lost him." Tears pricked at my eyes again. I fought to hold them back, but they slipped free, leaving trails down my cheeks. She took my hand in hers, her grasp warm, comforting, to promise that despite the chaos, kindness still existed. "Maybe he just doesn't understand," she offered, her small voice tentative, as if she were selecting her words like treasures. "Or maybe he does," I whispered, the weight of my own secrets folding in on me. "What if he knows about my past? What if everything I kept hidden surfaces and drives a wedge deeper than just his anger?" "But you've always been there for us," she insisted, gripping my hand tighter. "You've shared so much love. He just needs time, that's all. He's angry. But maybe with time, he'll remember." I wanted to believe her, to cling to her words like a lifeline against the waves crashing all around me. Yet I was haunted by the look of hurt and betrayal on Alex's face, the similarity between him and the part of me I hoped he would never know. I feared that if the truth of my past emerged, it would shatter not just our relationship, but everything we once were. The sun dipped low, painting the horizon with hues of orange and violet as dusk began its descent. Silence wrapped around us like a blanket, but it was a different kind of silence, a moment of connection, of empathy shared between us. How strange it was that in the depths of despair, I could feel the embrace of hope flicker subtly in the corners of my heart. Then, from the darkness behind us, a figure emerged, silhouetted against the fading light. My breath caught in my throat as I recognized the outline of Alex, stormy and determined. He was on a path to seek me out or to confront me again. My pulse quickened as I searched for what my own heart wished for, and what his anger had promised. "Alex," I whispered, fear tightening around me. Would he give me a chance to explain, or would this be the moment that sealed our connection's fate forever? The air grew thicker as Alex stepped closer, his face shadowed by the lingering twilight. I could sense the emotions churning within him, a tempest I had inadvertently created, and my heart raced in a futile attempt to brace for the storm. My niece's small hand remained wrapped tightly around mine, her presence a feeble armor against the confrontation that loomed before us. "Why are you hiding out here?" Alex's voice was low, simmering with a mixture of defiance and hurt. The words hung between us, heavy with unspoken reasons, suffocating like the damp air that surrounded us. I wished for the perfect words, those ancient charms that could mend what had been broken, but they eluded me like smoke slipping through my fingers. "That I am not hiding, Alex," I replied, my voice trembling under the weight of my truths. "I just needed a moment to gather my thoughts." "Gather your thoughts?" he scoffed, the bitterness staining the words. "What, more lies to cover the ones you've already told? Why is it always about you and your gathering when it comes to dealing with the mess you've made?" A sharp breath caught in my throat as the accusation cut deep. I could bear the anger, what I struggled against was the truth embedded in his words. All the years of protective silence, of shielding him from a past I thought I had buried, now threatened to engulf me. This moment, this vicious riptide of emotions, churned painfully in my chest. "Listen, please," I said, my voice tinged with desperation. I glanced at my niece, praying for encouragement instead of the stony look of betrayal that mirrored her cousin's face. I know I've made mistakes. But I've also loved you all fiercely. You are my family. You matter to me, family. His voice cracked, disbelief lacing through it. You can't just claim that title when you've been so distant. You're a stranger to me, and now I know why. The finality of his words crashed over me like a wave. I tried to steady myself against the bench, feeling its solidity beneath me as if it could root me into a sense of reality. I've always tried to protect you, I whispered, regretting my journey through silence. You would never understand. He took a step closer, his face illuminated by the last rays of fading sunlight. Then make me understand, he demanded, the pain evident in every syllable. Tell me what you're hiding. How can I trust you if you won't even share the truth with me? Deep down, I battled between the instinct to shield him and the urge to unburden my heart. The truth sat like a heavy stone within my chest, urging to be released. But speaking it could unravel everything, it could turn my love into ashes. Before I could respond, my niece interjected, Alex, she's trying. Maybe. Her voice faltered, a soft tremor reverberating through her words. Maybe it's not the past that matters but the future we can build together. He turned to her, skeptical but softened by her innocence. You don't know what she's done, but I know her heart. She raised us with love, and isn't that what counts? For an instant, a flicker of understanding passed between Usmi and the girl who still believed in magic, despite the dark cloud looming over us. But before I could hope, Alex's resolve hardened again, and in the cold light of dusk, I saw something else flicker in his eyes, a resolve not just to confront me, but to walk away forever. I don't think I can be around you right now, he said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper, the weight of the revelation settling on us like a thick fog. A tangible, suffocating silence enveloped us as those words sank in. With that, he turned, his figure slowly retreating into the shadows, leaving behind a chasm too wide to fathom. Panic surged through me. I felt the urge to reach out, to cry out, wait. I didn't mean, but the words lodged in my throat. Instead, I collapsed against the bench, my niece's small arm wrapping around my shoulders, attempting to comfort me. In her embrace, I felt a spark of warmth, yet it could not extinguish the icy grip of despair that had taken residence in my heart. I don't know what to do, I murmured through choked breaths. Just then, an unexpected person entered the scene. Daniel, my estranged son and Alex's father, drawn by the commotion. What's going on? His presence felt much like a specter from a time long past, and for a moment, I froze, trying to gauge his intent. His eyes flickered between us, assessing. I felt a wave of panic wash over me, unsure if he had overheard Alex's pain or if he would simply add another layer of discomfort. Just as I was about to explain, Daniel held up his hand. Whatever it is, I'm not here to stir anything up, he said, his voice softening as he caught my gaze. But this family is teetering on a thread, and we need to talk. My heart raced. Another confrontation? Another layer of anguish? Could the next conversation lead to more ruin, or was there a glimmer of hope hidden in the inevitable reckoning? The darkness enveloped the garden around us as I braced for whatever storm lay ahead, knowing deep down that the answers I sought were buried beneath my bravado and the weight of my secrets. The only thing clear to me now was that we were at a precipice, and I could not let go. The evening sky deepened into an inky blue, punctuated only by the flickering glow of distant streetlights. I felt the weight of Daniel's presence like a stone in my pocket, heavy and unyielding. My thoughts spiraled chaotically as I sought a way through the tension that hung thick in the air, dangling above us like a tempest. Let's go inside, Daniel suggested, his tone calming yet inquisitive, beckoning us toward the house where shadows danced amid the muted lights. I hesitated, glancing at my niece, who gave a small, encouraging nod, her unwavering support a balm for my frayed nerves. As we walked toward the dimly lit doorway, I felt Alex's words echoing in my mind, each syllable a spark that ignited the fear within me. What if Daniel sided with him, shattering the fragile bonds that still tethered our family? What if confronting our past opened wounds too deep to heal? We settled into the living room, the warmth of the fireplace contrasting sharply with the chill that lingered from our earlier confrontation. My niece perched on the edge of the couch, her small frame a beacon of innocence that I desperately clung to. Daniel and I exchanged uncertain glances, the space between us filled with unspoken history, an estranged son and a mother grappling with her choices. "Do you want to start?" he prompted, his tone more gentle now. "I can see something's eating at you." I gathered my thoughts, the urge to confess rearing its head along with the suffocating fear of judgment. "Alex and we just had a moment," I began slowly, glancing at my niece as she held her breath, waiting for more. "He's struggling with what I kept hidden, and I understand why he's angry. I never meant to hurt him." Daniel's brow furrowed. "Keeping secrets has a way of creating distance." His words were careful, yet they struck like a whip, forcing me to confront the truth I had run from for so long that I thought it was for the best, I admitted, my voice trembling. "There's so much I wanted to protect him from. I thought if I stayed quiet for long enough, the past would simply fade. But it hasn't." "Confronting it might be the only way to stop the cycle," he offered quietly, his eyes searching mine as if trying to read the unspoken agony within. "What are you really afraid of?" My heart raced, thrumming loudly against my chest as I considered the implications of honesty. "I'm afraid he will reject me," I confessed, my voice shaky, a tear threatening to escape. "That I'll ruin everything for him by telling the truth?" he interjected, disbelief weaving through his tone. "That would be the opposite of ruining things." "But why do you think he will reject you?" I hesitated, the memories crashing like waves within me. "Because I won't just be his aunt anymore, I'll be the woman who let him believe in a lie. I'll be the one who kept." I paused, the words churning in my throat. "Who kept your father away?" A silence stretched between us, heavy as the night outside. I saw something shift in Daniel's expression, a flicker of pain, perhaps, as the shadows of our shared past hovered over us. "Alex needs you," he finally said, his voice low yet firm. "He needs to know he isn't alone in this, that families do fracture, but they can also rebuild. We can't piece together what's been broken without honesty." I wanted to believe him, but the looming specter of Alex's words still clawed at my heart, tethering me to a future filled with uncertainty. "I've lost him, Daniel," I whispered, the admission tasting bitter on my tongue. Suddenly, my phone buzzed on the coffee table, a jarring interruption to our hushed discussion. I picked it up, my breath catching as I saw Alex's name flashing across the screen. My heart skipped as I hesitated, the weight of my decisions pouring over me like ice water. "Answer it," Daniel urged, his voice a soft push. "Don't let fear control the moment." I glanced at my niece, who watched with wide, hopeful eyes, her small fists clenched in anxiety. With trembling fingers, I pressed the answer button, raising the phone to my ear. "Alex?" My voice was barely above a whisper, the tension coiling tightly in my chest. There was a long silence on the other end, and my heart thudded painfully as I waited for a response. Finally, I heard his voice strained and raw. "Are you alone?" "Yes," I replied, my heart racing. "Are you okay?" "I need to talk," he said, his tone tight, and something in his voice struck me as different. "Can you meet me at the old park? There's something you need to see." I felt Daniel's eyes on me, a mixture of concern and urgency compelling me to respond right. "Okay. I'll be there soon." As I ended the call, an unsettling chill washed over me. Was this to be another confrontation where walls would slam closed, or could it be a bridge, a path towards understanding? I glanced at Daniel, my heart hammering with uncertainty. "Just be honest," he whispered, the weight of his words grounding me amidst the storm brewing inside. And just like that, I was drawn toward the inevitable, the unsettling idea that a hidden truth awaited to be uncovered. Me hope mingled with dread. As I left the house, my niece trailing behind me, I knew that the journey was far from over, and whatever awaited at the park might either fracture us further or, against all odds, begin to heal. The night wrapped around me like a velvet shroud as I drove toward the old park, my thoughts cascading into an abyss of worry and apprehension. The familiar path, once a place of solace, now felt like a minefield, each shadow looming ominously. I could still hear Alex's voice in my mind, strained and distant. "You need to see." What could he possibly want to show me? I arrived at the park, and the floodlights cast a harsh glow on the playground, illuminating the swings that creaked with each gust of wind. I scanned the area, my heart racing, trying to catch a glimpse of him amidst the shadows. The last traces of daylight surrendered to the encroaching dark, and I pulled my jacket tighter around me, hoping to shield myself from the chill that ran deeper than the bitter air. Then, I spotted him, leaning against the chain-link fence surrounding the soccer field. His posture was defeated, shoulders slumped like the weight of the world rested upon them. Guilt gripped me tighter than any winter's breeze, and I sadly approached, unsure how to breach the fragile distance between us. "Alex," I called softly, trying to tame the quiver in my voice. He turned, his eyes revealing a storm of emotions I could hardly decipher. I realized in that moment how much he had looked like his father, and the mirror of old memories nearly blinded me. "Why did you come?" His tone was incredulous, as if my presence were both a blessing and a burden. That I took a tentative step closer, searching for the right words. "Because I want to understand. I want to know what you're feeling." I paused, desperately hoping for a connection I could cling to. "Please, talk to me." That he kicked at the grass, mulling it over before finally allowing a heavy sigh to escape his lips. "What's the point? What's the point in talking if it's just going to lead to more lies?" "What do you mean?" My heart plummeted as I tried to read him, the fear of another confrontation looming in the air. Alex finally looked me in the eyes, and in that moment, I saw his struggle. Maybe beneath the anger and betrayal, there lay a frightened boy yearning for his family. "I told you." I saw the letters. The confession struck like lightning, illuminating everything in one cruel flash. "What letters?" I asked, horrified at the thought of the hidden truths coming to light. "The walls ID tried to maintain collapsing around me like fragile glass, the ones you wrote to Daniel and never sent. You thought I didn't know, but I found them in your drawer when I was looking for a notebook." His voice cracked, and the echoes of his heartbreak tangled with mine. That a heavy silence enclosed us, and I felt like the ground beneath me had shifted. The Laterza relic of a past I could barely face embodied every regret that haunted me. Don't want to hear your excuses. I want to know why you kept all of this from me." He cut me off, his anger still palpable, but now it was intertwined with desperation. "Why didn't you tell me I had a brother?" His words cut deep, a knife through the mess I had created. I opened my mouth to respond, to explain how fear and love fought within me, but nothing came out. All that emerged was the weight of my failures as a mother and as a guardian. "Why did you abandon him?" Alex's voice dropped, a wounded animal with nowhere to turn. "Why didn't you fix things when you could?" The accusatory tone felt like a fist, but beneath it lay a yearning for connection, for answers. My own heart began to hurt in rhythmic thuds that echoed with memories of lost opportunities, the children who should have grown up together and shared laughter that haunted our family ties. "That I was afraid," I finally admitted, my voice barely a whisper. "I thought if I shielded you from the truth, you'd be better off. I thought I was protecting you from the darkness of our reality. Why hiding it?" He countered, frustration and confusion mingling in his expression. "You could have told me, and we could have figured it out together." In that moment, clarity filled the air, igniting a spark of hope amid despair. I took a step closer, eyes searching his, yearning to bridge the cavern that had opened between us. "I know I made mistakes, and I don't expect you to forgive me right now. But we can start anew." "We can." Before I could complete the thought, Alex's gaze darkened, transforming like storm clouds gathering overhead. "You don't get it," he interrupted, fear creeping into his voice. "I'm scared of what happens if I really know you. What if you let me down again?" Doubt gnawed at my insides like a persistent ache. I couldn't blame him for feeling that way. I had been the architect of his confusion. "Sometimes, the only way to truly heal is to confront our ghosts head-on," I urged, my voice trembling with sincerity. "Let me show you I can be better." A flicker ignited in his eyes, an ember of hope warring against the darkness. But just as I thought he might relent, something shifted. From behind us, footsteps crunched on the gravel path leading to the park entrance, shattering the fragile moment between us. My heart sank as I turned to see Daniel approaching, his face set in a grim line. "I'm sorry to interrupt," he called, his voice echoing across the stillness, a tension suddenly tangible in the air. "But we need to talk now." Alex stiffened, anxiety sweeping across his features as he exchanged glances with me. The moment of vulnerability we'd been sharing dissipated, the weight of unresolved tensions hanging heavier than before. I could see the trepidation creeping into his eyes, a new layer of fear wrapped tight around his heart. "Please," I whispered, reaching out for him, but Alex was already retreating into himself, the shield once again wrapping around his heart. As we stood side by side, Daniel's expression mirrored that of the storm brewing in my heart. Something was amiss, and the urgency in his voice revealed that whatever he had to say could shatter every fragment of hope I had tried to stitch together. "Alex, wait," I pleaded, but he had already stepped back, the space between us growing into an endless abyss of uncertainty. No matter how much I wanted to close the gap, I felt the jagged edges of the truth slicing deeper into my soul, leaving me vulnerable and exposed in ways I never thought possible. The three of us stood there in the park, echoes of yesterday paralyzing the present, each breath heavy with the weight of the unknown. And as Daniel opened his mouth to speak, each word poised to bring forth change and confrontation, I braced for the worst. The secrets we had kept might soon unravel, and I wasn't sure if I had the strength to bear it, or if I would even emerge whole on the other side. The air hung thick with contradictions, an almost tangible tension wrapping around us like a shroud. My heart raced as I scanned Daniel's face, looking for the glimmer of compassion I desperately hoped to find. Instead, what met my gaze was a chiseled resolve, as if he had made a decision that would cut closer than any knife. "Alex, we need to talk about your mother," Daniel began, his voice steady but laced with a nervous energy that betrayed his calm facade. "There are things you don't know, things that change everything." At that moment, it felt like the ground shifted beneath my feet, and the air crackled with the unspoken. I opened my mouth to interject, to plead with him not to do this here, not to expose Alex to more hurt, but the words caught in my throat. I had no right to silence him, my past sins had put us in this fractured position. "Things you don't know?" Alex echoed, his voice barely above a whisper, face pale. It was as if the weight of those words alone had the power to tip him over the edge of whatever fragile emotional ledge he stood upon. "Everything," Daniel insisted, his resolve hardening. "You need to understand why your mother acted the way she did. Why she kept her past locked away like it was vindictive treasure, all in a misguided attempt to protect you." The shadows of the park seemed to close in on us, swallowing any light that, moments before, had flickered with potential. Alex's expression shifted, something raw and fragile slicing through the confusion and anger that had colored it just moments before. "Why now?" Alex spat, hands curling into fists at his sides. "Why do this here, in front of her?" My heart sank deeper, feeling the betrayal settle between the three of us like an unwanted specter. I wanted so desperately to reach out, to position myself as the lifeline for my son in this turbulent sea of untruths, but all that played in my mind were the regrets of my choices. "Because it's time," Daniel replied, the steadiness of his voice crackling against the brewing storm of my own emotions. "The truth is the only thing that will help us move forward instead of drowning in our own lies." "But what kind of truth?" My stomach churned at the thought of the secrets Daniel was poised to unravel. Would they illuminate my path or further shroud us in darkness? Alex's gaze darted between Daniel and me, confusion giving way to something darker. "You mean, this is just another lie? Another reason to hate her?" For a moment, I stood frozen, the sorrow of my past piercing my heart anew. "It's not about hate," I finally managed, my voice trembling. "It's about understanding what should have never been. Things that could hurt us." Alex interjected, his voice rising with each word like a tide crashing against an unyielding shore. "You had a chance to tell me and you didn't. To be honest about everything. So tell me, what else is there?" I took a step forward, desperately searching Alex's face for a way back into his heart, but he flinched away, a slight movement that seemed to physically halt my yearning. "That I don't even know who you are anymore," he shouted, the moment slicing through me with jagged precision. "You're just a stranger who lied to me." And there it weighs an accusation heavy with the authority of disappointment. I had become the very embodiment of his anguish, and the walls I had tried so desperately to hold together were crumbling under the weight of his words. "Alex, please," I begged, wrapping my arms around myself as if I could shield my heart from the pain. "I am still your mother. I love you." That was when Daniel took a hesitant step forward, hesitant enough to balance the tension between distance and connection. "Listen to me," he implored, authority flaring, "there are things about your mother's past, about who your brother, the brother you never told me about." Alex fumed, his voice trembling. "You hid him from me, you turned your back on your own child, this isn't fair, Alex," Daniel insisted, clenching his jaw, his frustration amping up the already heavy atmosphere. "But this is the truth. All of it. You need to hear why your mother chose silence over honesty, that I don't care why." He shouted emphatically, his fists now white-knuckled. "You don't get to manipulate this into something that's going to justify her ways. You don't get to make excuses for her choices, and then everything stilled." Alex's breath hitched, his face a mix of disbelief and sadness, and I could feel the heartbreak echo in the silence that followed. We were all trapped beneath the weight of unvoiced fears and paralyzing memories. "We need to do this together, Alex," Daniel murmured, softer now, as if recognizing the fragile threshold we stood before. "This isn't just about her past, it's about your future. About understanding why things have happened the way they have. As the words hung in the stillness, an unexpected kindness crackled through the air like a spark. Despite the chaos that threatened to envelop us, Daniel stretched out his hand toward Alex, offering support amidst the fractures. It was a small gesture, one that bore the weight of familiarity and shared struggle. But the moment didn't last long. The conflict within Alex surged forth, his gaze darting from Daniel to me with a flicker of vulnerability mixed with anger. "I don't want your empathy," Alex snarled, punctuated with a sharp shake of his head. "I don't want to hear another lie," but before Daniel could respond, Alex's phone vibrated in his pocket, cutting through the tension. He glanced down, confusion knitting his brow deeper. "Who?" His voice cracked, eyes widening. "Alex." I was rooted, not knowing what could possibly be unraveling now. He turned his back to us, wrapping his arms around himself as if the sudden chill had seeped through his shirt and stung him to his core. The words vibrating on the screen could only be as sinister as they were unexpected. "No, this can't." Unease filled the silence, but what had come next was punctured by disbelief. "Is that my brother?" My heart lurched, the unexpected revelation weaving itself into the labyrinth of my fears. The world around us ceased to exist as I braced for the fallout from the truth that would inevitably unravel the delicate threads of our lives. And in that moment, just like that, the landscape of our complex connection shifted, and I wondered if we were too late to mend the bonds that had been so carelessly shattered. "Alex, wait," I started, but he was already dialing a number, and as the darkness loomed around us, I feared we were too close to the precipice, searching for a lifeline as the secrets continued to spiral, each one darker than the last. The wind swept through the park, carrying the last light of day with it as Alex's voice shook the very foundation of our lives. "You're telling me I have a brother, and I didn't even know? How long have you been hiding him? Was he worth more than me?" He had his phone pressed to his ear, a whirlwind of emotions churning in his chest, anger rising like smoke. I stood there, paralyzed by the surge of dread that clawed at my throat. The realization washed over me like ice water. The truth struggled within me like a trapped bird, desperate to escape, yet fear held it captive. "Alex, please," I began, but he cut me off mid-sentence, his focus entirely on the conversation unfolding on his phone. "You have to be lying." His voice strained, his eyes locked onto mine, bright with hurt but edged with a fierceness that left me breathless. "If this is a joke, it's not funny. I don't have a brother. I never had one." A passing couple glanced over, sensing the electric tension, the rift forming within our small group. I could feel their judgment, their confusion, like salt on an already festering wound. I longed to draw Alex close, to soothe the storm, but every time I reached out, he recoiled, as if the very air between us was tainted by my past. "Alex," Daniel interjected, his voice surprisingly firm, cutting through the spiraling chaos. "Focus. If he's out there, you need to find out why." He shouted back, grief stains lining his cheeks, staining the truth further. "Why would it matter to me? I'm already a stranger in my own family," and there it was, the truth branded onto him like a scar I couldn't erase. My chest tightened, suffocated by the weight of all I had kept hidden. Every word, Every silence had led us to this agonizing endpoint. "You're still my son, and I never wanted you to feel you should have thought of that before," he spat, a cocktail of pain and betrayal swirling in his voice. "How many more family secrets are there? Will I find out that I have a dozen half-siblings hidden in different states? At some point, can't you just own up to being a bad mother?" "Oh, Alex," I whispered, tears finally spilling over, a silent admission of my brokenness. Everything I had shielded him from, everything I had fought to protect, now felt like nails pounding into the fragile timeline of our lives. That I risked a look at Daniel, who stood just a few steps away, his presence a murky blend of allies and adversaries. "This isn't just her choice, Alex. It's about who this family is. Who you are. Don't you want the chance to understand?" His voice trembled, the sincerity crashing against the waves of Alex's anger, but Alex took a step back, the warmth of our bond retreating like the tide. "What if I don't want to understand?" he asked, his shoulders sagging. "What if I just want to be left alone in the wreckage you've made of my life?" For the briefest moment, I considered his words. What if that was ultimately what I deserved? I held his gaze, not as a mother trying to defend her actions, but as a woman stripped bare, laid vulnerable before the truth. "You don't have to face this alone, please." He turned away, fingers flying over the screen, searching desperately for this phantom brother, a connection that existed beyond the gulf of trust already widened. "I can't do this with you," he said, voice breaking. "I need to know if he's real. If you've created a whole other life while I sat here feeling abandoned." As the silence settled heavily around us again, Daniel stepped back, allowing Alex the space he demanded. Despite the turmoil that coursed through my veins, I could see Daniel's own pain reflected in his eyes. This was not how any of us had wanted it to be. Ruth, split wide open, with jagged edges. In that moment, I felt an inkling of hope, the type that flickers when the storm feels relentless. It was just a single thought, yet it sprawled out and begot others, filling the cavernous emptiness that was threatening to swallow me whole. Instead of fleeing from the truth, "Maybe he can be a bridge, not a wall," I murmured under my breath, half hoping Alex would hear. "We might not be whole, but before I could tell him that family stretched beyond the confines of blood," the phone call ended and Alex's expression twisted into one of acute disbelief. "What did he just say?" Alex turned pale, his fingers trembling as he hung up. He said he's not ready to meet me. He said after everything, he can't trust what I am, but he's sending me something. Something that changes everything." "Alex, wait." I reached forward desperately, the warmth of his dismissal a physical push against my chest. "What does that mean?" He shook his head, a bewildered blend of emotions crossing his face. "I don't know. But if that's the case, what if Mom's not the only one who kept secrets?" In that moment, the festival of hope dimmed, a cruel shadow swallowing it whole as I realized the path to truth was now more precarious than I had ever imagined. "Alex, please don't." But he was already backing away, retreating farther away from me, this time not in anger, but fear. The fear that had been amplified not just by my hidden past, but by the uncertainty of something darker lurking behind the frail veil of family. A breath caught in my throat, the chasm widening as Alex faced the growing silence of the gathering night. What if there's a reason he hasn't wanted to know me? What if the truth is more dangerous than we ever realized? With his words hanging vulnerably in the twilight, I felt the ground shift under my feet, and I could almost hear the echoes of future conversations, ones that would cut deeper than any secrets had before. As the night settled, I understood we were no longer just pursuing fragmented truths, we were now grasping at the threads of the unknown, hope fading to a whisper while the darkness closed in around us. The night deepened like a suffocating shroud, wrapping its tendrils around our broken family as Alex stood there, shadowed and trembling. My heart ached as I watched him retreat from me, a sudden rift expanding in the air, thick with unspoken words. Each step he took felt like a weight added to the soul of the night. I wanted to call out, but the power of his disbelief struck me into silence. My arms ached to hold him close, to shield him from the wounds that lay ahead, yet I knew this was a turning point. He was starting to peel away the layers of my carefully structured life, and in doing so, he was unveiling his own vulnerabilities. But how could I explain the charade of love and necessity I had created? Comfort tangled with desperation, and the truth clawed its way up from the depths of my conscience, threatening to spill over in a way that would shatter what little remained of our connection. "Mom," Daniel's gentle voice pierced the murkiness, pulling me from my spiral. "We need to talk. More than we ever have." I nodded, barely processing as I turned to him, the warmth of his presence still a small comfort amidst the chaos. "He's just scared," I murmured, the words tasting bitter as they escaped. "I can't blame him for wanting to run. Everything I've done has pushed him away. Or brought him closer," Daniel countered softly. "He has a right to be angry, but his pursuit of understanding might also lead him to reconciliation if we guide him." I looked beyond him at the fading lights of the festival nearby, laughter exploding in a burst of life, so far removed from the sorrow that clung to our small circle. The remnants of joy felt like a taunt. "We can't just throw ourselves into this mess. Not without knowing the full extent of what lies beneath the surface. Perhaps it's time we face the shadows together," Daniel replied, stepping closer as our eyes met. "Not just for Alex, but for us too." As he spoke, a new whisper of hope began to stir within me, a fragile ember kindled by his conviction. I had spent so long believing that facing the truth would only break us further, yet here was Daniel, suggesting that truth could be a balm as well. Maybe it wasn't just about the boy, it was about cementing the cracks in our own relationship, the very foundation that our family had once rested upon. "Have you thought about what Alex's brother could mean for us all?" Daniel continued, grounding me. "If he exists, he has as much right to be part of Alex's life as we do. There's still time for us to reach out and extend that bridge instead of burning it down in fear." Each word blossomed in my heart like fragile petals, each one a promise, yet clinging to the thorns of uncertainty. "What if the brother is just another source of pain?" I asked softly, the dread pooling in my stomach. "What if it opens old wounds that can't heal?" "Every family has secrets," he said. "Pushing forward could bring clarity." The fear that encased me was profound, a bitter past looming over our heads like a storm cloud. "Then how do we face it?" I whispered, staring deep into Daniel's eyes, searching for the spark of courage I so desperately needed. "Together," he replied simply, holding my gaze steady. "You deserve answers just as much as Alex does. No more secrets." As I contemplated his sincerity, a gust of wind rustled through the trees, the leaves dancing as if sharing our unspoken resolve. I had kept so much hidden, my stories tightly bound, but perhaps it was time to unravel them both for Alex, for Daniel, and for myself. Taking a deep breath, I added, "And what if Alex refuses to listen? What if his fear leads him to reject all of us? As long as we don't give up on him, there's always hope. But we need to be ready for the unexpected." His words resonated deeply, awakening a possibility I had feared to name. "The unexpected," I echoed, considering what that could mean. Before Daniel could respond, a sudden commotion erupted from the festival, laughter turning to shouts, weaving through the air like fireworks. I turned my head instinctively to see a group of teenagers gathered around a center stage. Their cheers growing louder. A figure stood tall among them. In the last uplift of celebration, the young man raised his arms wide, a jubilance that echoed with possibility. That's Alex." I gasped, my heart skipping a beat as I recognized his familiar silhouette beneath the swirling lights. But before I could move, a realization washed over me. This wasn't just a celebration, it was a public declaration. The grin on Alex's face faltered, and with a mix of excitement and uncertainty, he stepped back from the throng. The young man beside him leaned in, whispering something as the crowd roared over the music. A moment passed, and then Alex recoiled, an expression I had never seen before flashing across his face. Suddenly, I watched as Alex's hand darted toward his pocket, fumbling, anger igniting on his features. "No!" he shouted over the uproar, and my heart plunged as I saw what had set him off: an envelope, stark against the colorful backdrop, held in the hand of another, someone I hadn't noticed before. In that moment, everything collided, the secrets, the unknown, the tormented youth in front of me, jostling for control. The sudden realization that this event, the laughter, the tears, was more than a mere gathering. It was a crucible, a test of all that we had avoided, lurking on the edge of revelation. "Mom," Daniel said, his voice chilling me to the core, "he needs us now more than ever." I felt the world tilt beneath me, a dizzying recognition of fractured truths colliding. As I rushed forward, my body thrumming with urgency, I could almost hear the words echoing in my mind, a silent scream pulling at the seams of our reality. We might have just lost him to the very truth we had fought to embrace. The crowd swelled like a tide, their laughter and energy swirling around me as I pushed through, the thrum of anticipation in the air heavy with the weight of Alex's turmoil. I glimpsed him standing there, vulnerable yet defiant, caught between the pull of the moment and the push of his fear. The envelope in the stranger's hand trembled like a dark omen, casting shadows over everything we had worked to mend. "Alex!" I shouted, hope laced with desperation, but my voice was lost in the tumultuous chorus of the festival. He whipped around, eyes blazing like twin storms, his expression slipping through a maze of emotion: rage, disbelief, vulnerability. Through the brilliance of the festival lights and the haze of panic, I caught a fleeting glimpse of Daniel by my side, his expression grim yet unwavering. "Stay close," he murmured, our hands brushing as we forged together through the mass of people, unified in our purpose. "What's happening?" I pressed, barely managing to squeeze the question through the pounding of my heart. Time stretched, fraught with the unspoken tension hanging thick in the air. "I don't know," Daniel replied, his gaze fixed firmly on Alex, but my focus was torn. The boy's figure loomed larger, distorted by the fear that raced between us like a crosscurrent, and I found myself grappling against that tidal wave. As I reached the edge of the gathering, the atmosphere shifted. Alex had turned sharply away from the envelope, his body language screaming rejection. Voices escalated, a cacophony of keen interest blending into shaming murmurs as the people around grew restless, hungry for drama. "Stop!" I cried instinctively, my heart thrumming louder than the music, desperation clawing at my throat. The crowd's noise fell into a hush, the world narrowing until all that remained was the weight of Alex's silence slamming into me. "Mom," he began, his voice slicing through the air, the tremor of anguish evident in the one word. "You don't get to just show up like this. Not after what you've done." Every syllable felt like a strike against the walls of my heart. The look on his face was a mix of fury and hurt, a reflection of emotions bottled for far too long. I stepped into that charged space, and for once, the entire world felt secondary to the boy I loved. "I am here, Alex. I want to explain everything." "Explain?" His voice was scorching, flames of hurt licking at the edges of my resolve. "What is there to explain?" "That you've lied to me whole life. You say you love me, but you don't even trust me with the truth. How is that family?" The word cut deeper than any knife. Family, the very concept that felt like a fragile thread binding us together, now seemed torn, unraveling harshly in the light of his accusation. The reality of all our lost hours hit hard, crushing me under the weight of my own failures. A murmur swelled from the crowd once more as I stood there, painfully vulnerable beneath the gaze of our family, our friends, the strangers who had turned into sudden witnesses of our fractures. I felt Daniel stir beside me, but I couldn't break my gaze from Alex, the boy who was the embodiment of my greatest joy, now transformed into my haunting pain. I didn't before I could voice my defense. The stranger with the envelope thrust it forward, shoving it toward Alex. "You should see this. You need to know. It's why things are the way they are." The truth hung in the air like a sword, suspended, waiting for its moment. The crowd around us drew closer, their curiosity palpable as though they surrounded a live bomb, ready to detonate at any moment. "Run!" Daniel shouted suddenly, ripping me back from the edge of a spiral that threatened to swallow us whole. "No!" I protested. "I can't leave. He needs me." But the urgency thrummed through my words, urging me to grasp the tenuous thread of hope that still remained. What if this reveals something we've never expected? A truth that could rattle us for good? Daniel's eyes bore an earnestness that struck deep within my heart. "Are you really suggesting we just turn our backs?" I felt the heat rising, a mixture of fear and righteous indignation. And then, Alex made a choice. In one swift movement, He snatched the envelope from the stranger's hand, ripping it open with trembling fingers in front of the crowd, a storm of emotions swirling around us, trapped in the eye of his decision. "No!" I screamed, but the words escaped, lost to the roar of astonishment that swept through the assembled. I felt Daniel's grip tighten, the world around me tilting off its axis as I braced for what was to come. What if the words he unveiled held devastation? What if they revealed just how far apart our lives had grown, how unrecognizable our family had become? With a muffled gasp, Alex pulled out a photograph. His eyes widened, the expression on his face shifting from anger to fear to something more profound, something like confusion and horror intermingled. The festival fell silent, the vibrant laughter dissipated into a thunderous void, the grave weight of the truth descending upon us all. "Who are you?" he whispered, staring at the image, recognition quaking with disbelief, the ground shifting beneath our feet. His voice splintered and cracked like a fragile branch beneath the weight of a brutal revelation as he spoke the words that would change everything. "What have you been hiding from me?" The truth hung there, glistening and sharp, poised to stab us all with its otherworldly edge. It was a moment swollen with possibility, reckless in its increase of tension, testing the very fabric of our bonds. Every heartbeat echoed like a countdown, his answer, my despair, Daniel's resolve swirling in a dizzying trajectory, just one move away from irrevocable change. The question lingered in the air like a ghost, deafening and clear, poised to demand our next action. I stood there, paralyzed as Alex grappled with the photograph, the world around us fading to a mere backdrop of light and sound. His incredulous gaze locked onto the image before him, a mix of disbelief and fear etching itself across his features. Each second stretched, palpable, rife with tension, as I waited for him to say something, anything. But what could be said when secrets both ancient and recent weighed heavily in the air? There was a collective intake of breath from the crowd, eyes darting between us, their curiosity transforming into hushed whispers that danced in the electric atmosphere. "What is it?" I finally managed to croak, the words struggling to break free, desperation creeping into my voice as I stepped closer, my heart racing. "What do you see?" I see. Alex hesitated, rage flickering in his irises. "I see someone who isn't familiar but looks strikingly similar." His voice trembled, a sore crack that showcased the depth of his tumult. "Who is she?" He turned the photo toward me, the image clear as day, a woman with familiar eyes and a smile that mirrored my own, yet was distinctly more radiant. "Is this her? Is this my brother's mother?" The question sliced through me, and I felt my heart plummet into a chasm I never knew existed. "Alex," I began, but the weight of my truths bore down as I searched for the right words to bridge the gaping void between us. "That's not an answer," he shouted, frustration pouring out as his fists shook at his sides. "You've hidden everything from me. Was it to protect me? To keep me from the truth? Because this doesn't feel like protection. It feels like betrayal." He was right. The sheer rage ignited in him was a reflection of the despair I had stacked atop my own heart, burying secrets and lies like fragile bones beneath the weight of expectation. My hands trembled as I took the photograph from him, feeling the thread of connection slipping through my fingers. "I need to tell you the truth, but it's going to hurt," I finally breathed, confronting my own fears as I took a step closer, bracing myself for the tempest ahead. "Would it ever hurt more than this?" he snapped, gesturing toward the photograph, the reality of it punching through the fragile barrier we had erected, threatening to shatter whatever faith remained. His eyes bored into mine, demanding answers as a storm brewed between us, a tempest of unfulfilled expectation and jagged regret. All around us, the world continued to spin, laughter echoing like a bittersweet memory carried on the night air, yet inside, we were utterly stilled, caught in the snare of our truths and the possibility of reconnection that lay just beyond our reach. "That picture, Alex, she is part of a past I thought I could shield you from. Your brother's mother, she was my best friend from years ago, and we lost so much. I thought by being silent, I was protecting you from the grief. But all it did was separate us further." "I don't understand," he murmured, every syllable wrapped in confusion and hurt. "You kept this from me because of a friendship. Does that mean I have a brother? Am I supposed to just accept that while you covered up lies and painted a picture of a perfect world where everything was fine? There's more," I whispered, every word a step closer to my own reckoning. I was ashamed. I didn't want you to know the truth behind our family's chaos. The battles I faced are scrapped on the floor of my mind like broken glass. I paused, feeling the tears pricking at my eyes as I steadied my breath. I was afraid of the hurt it would cause. I thought if you loved me, you wouldn't see past these shadows. You're wrong, he replied, anguish coating the words. It's the secrets that hurt the most. Tell me everything. The air felt charged around us, and as I opened my mouth to answer, the weight of reality descended like a heavy fog. The truth coiled around my heart, wrapping tighter with each revelation, each glance into Alex's searching gaze. Your brother was born after a tumultuous summer that changed everything for us, for our family. Their life was touched by choices I couldn't have ever anticipated, choices that spiraled us into a world I wish to keep you far away from. There. He echoed, searching my face as genuine confusion crossed his features. What did you do? Are you telling me I actually have a brother? I nodded, feeling the shards of my heart fracture further beneath the weight of my overwhelming shame. Yes, Alex, yes. Daniel's son. He had another family because of my decisions. I chose silence when I should have owned up to my reality. In trying to protect you, I dishonored the very love I fought to give you. He stared at me, shock broadening across his face, and for a moment, I glimpsed a flicker of something deeper than mere Angara yearning, an ache for family, for connection, for honesty. But just as quickly as it appeared, it was swallowed by the tide of betrayal. The woman in the picture, he muttered. Did you love her? No, she was my best friend, and what happened afterward tore us apart, I replied, my voice shattering. We lost so much more than a child. Our friendship, our family. For years, I thought if I faded into the shadow of it all, it would keep you safe. But the longer I remained silent, the darker it became. What happened to him? Where is my brother? The vulnerability in his voice pierced through me. The truth was swirling, contorted among us, locked beneath layers of absent shadows. A past I thought I could leave behind now danced on the precipice of our future. I don't know, I said finally. But I want to find out. The acknowledgement of the painful unknown sent tremors racing through me. For so long, I clung to the illusion that family bonds could remain unbroken without the inevitability of facing our past. But we were alive. Our family was splintered, each of us fending off the ghosts of secrets, yet here we stood, breathless, on the verge of rippling honesty. Why should I believe anything you say? Alex asked, my heart breaking anew at the desolation in his tone, because no matter what I kept from you every moment I believed I was holding it all together. Me love was never the lie. It's time I showed you the truth. As determination surged in me, I reached for his hand, drawing him closer. Let's search together, Alex. We face this, and we won't turn back. We can rebuild from this, from whatever secret lies ahead. For a brief moment, I saw a flicker of hope within him, a delicate thread of possibility wavering against the storm. And as he took a hesitant step toward me, the remnants of our broken past began to thread together, weaving a fragile strand of us anew. Okay, he whispered, the heartache and uncertainty still dancing in his gaze, yet the sheer determination of the moment felt palpable. Let's find him. In that moment, amidst the flickering lights of the festival and the weight of unspoken grief between us, something started to mend, something deep and raw took root. Perhaps forgiveness lay not in closing the chapters of our past but in embracing the unfinished narrative that still longed for completion, a possibility pregnant with hope, anchoring us closer together beneath the weight of tomorrow's fears. And as we walked side by side into the night, toward the journey ahead, I realized our story was far from over. We were stepping into a new Beginninga canvas yet untouched, ready for our truths to paint the masterpiece of our lives. The final words echoed in my heart, snapping the silence around us like fragile glass, and I whispered softly, whatever happens, we will face it together.